Hello,
Hello.
my name is Rusenica. Welcome to my casual book channel where we talk everything book related. And today we're going to be talking all the books that I read in November. I read 5 books in November. Can I call this a November wrap up? Although November has wrapped up officially, is that still what that is? I don't think so. Somebody let me know. I typically read like 4 to 5 books in a month. I'm a medium slow reader. So this month was pretty normal for me. I pushed myself in in September to read like 8 books because I saw somebody say that they read 8 books in a month, and I was like, how the heck do you do that? So now we're back to regularly scheduled programming. My programming is to read no more than 5 books, and at least 2 of them will be audio because how else is that gonna happen? It's not. The books that I read this month are Intermezzo by Sally Rooney, Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West by Gregory Maguire, When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole, Here One Moment by Leanne Moriarty, which I have filmed a reading vlog on. If you want to check that out, it'll be out Sunday. And then Never Lie by Frida McFadden. And then I DNF'd like 3 books. I want to talk about what I like in a book, what I'm looking for to give me a 5 out of 5, and then I'll get into the in-depth reviews of the book so that you kind of know like what is steering me to say what I'm saying, right? Okay, but before I get into that, if at any moment you like what I have to say, you agree with something, or you would like to comment, please like or comment or even stick around the channel and subscribe because it really helps out. It really helps the algorithm tell people that my channel is worth viewing at all. So I would just appreciate it. Not to put like the ultimate pressure on you, but if you could just tell me out a bit, I'd really, really appreciate it. Okay, so what I like in a book, what will give me a 5 out of 5, is a book that is introspective. I need to feel like I'm in the character's head, and I need to feel their every thought and feel as though it is aligned with them. I would like a good cry. I would like something potentially thrilling, and I want something with social commentary. It can be implicit or explicit, but for the most part, I lean towards Viking books that are more explicit. My only 2 5s that I have right now, Demon Copperhead and The Rachel Incident. So that's like what I like. They both have extreme social commentary, and they both, to me, were thrilling and very introspective. But let's get into the books that I liked for this month. Okay, so Intermezzo is the first book that we're going to talk about because I already talked about it. I don't really need to go too in depth to it, but I don't think that I really sat down and did a proper review. So this is the proper. I rated this book a 4 out of 5. If you don't know anything about Intermezzo, if you didn't watch my video, which by the way, watch my video if you could. This book houses the story of how grief manifests between 2 brothers that lost their father. The brothers go about different ways of expressing their grief, which shows up in their romantic relationships as well as their relationship to each other. This book is really interesting because it showcases the fact that people handle grief very differently. Some people handle grief by meeting somebody new and kind of exploring the connection that they have to grief and explaining and like finding comfort and warmth in somebody. And then some people fall into substance abuse issues. And that's really what just this book is 2 different types of grief. Also, I keep saying intermezzo, it's intermezzo. Yeah, I read intermezzo. It's intermezzo. This book is for people who are fans of introspection. And if you like to read an overthinker's thoughts, this is for you. If you're not about the no plot, all vibes, all interpersonal conflicts that could be solved within a conversation, this I don't really think is for you because it's going to annoy the crap out of you. It only really got to me. I only really had book fatigue towards the last 20 pages because it kind of felt like, okay, we've established everything we need to establish. I'm kind of just waiting for this to be wrapped up in a bow. From page 0 to the end, I did enjoy the themes that were explored, which I talk about in my video where I talk about intermezzo. Highly recommend if it's within your taste to be introspective. So then we have Wicked. This is the story of Wicked before it became a musical. This was adapted from this book. Wicked is the story of Alphaba and how she became Wicked, her origin story. The book The Wizard of Oz was written in 1900, which I did not know, by Frank L. Baum. That's where Alphaba's name actually comes from, because the writer of Wicked wanted to pay homage to the Wizard of Oz author, because they are not the same person. It's not technically a prequel. It is, but it's not technically one because they have different authors. Frank L. Baum, FLBA Alphaba, in case you didn't know that. The book, 1900. The movie was adapted from the book, 1939. Then from there, Wicked was written in 1995, and then the musical was adapted in 2003. I read this book to prepare for the movie because I thought I was going to make a video that was comparing the differences between the book and the movie, because I did that for Killers of a Flower Moon. However, I just did not enjoy the book as much as I thought I was going to, so I decided to skip out on it. Honestly, I was disappointed in this book because it was just so much darker than I thought it was going to be. It was very difficult at times to read because the very intimate sexual scenes that I read, a lot of it was non-consensual when it did happen, and I was not expecting that. I was expecting, like, oh, we're going to see Elphaba, and no mentions of sex or sexual acts are going to be in this at all. Not that I have an issue with that, but a lot of it was very, like, jarring. The book starts off with Elphaba's parents, Frex and Melena. Frex in the book is a high priestess. Did they say priestess? I thought priestess was for a girl. Not the governor of Munchkin Land. And then the mother, we focus on their story for longer than the movie explained. Like, the movie did kind of showcase the fact that Alphaba was born out of an affair, but it was just not as clear when I was reading the book, because it was so hard to read the style of writing, because although it was written in 1995, you would have thought it was written maybe in the 50s, trying to imitate, like, it wasn't full on Shakespearean, but it felt a little bit trying in that way. That's one thing about this book, is that it's going to have non-consensual moments, and it's also going to have a ton of affairs. Oh my god, like, everybody in this book is in an affair. And that's similar to the play in the way that different characters are in love with each other, but these were like adult affairs. Like, for the fact that this book brought us the Wicked verse, I have to rate it higher than I would if this was just any regular old book, just because I have to recognize the fact that most of why I don't like this book is just because my expectations were too high. Not because the foundation of the story isn't good, but because I thought it was going to be something else. And I just have to recognize the excellence for what it is, as opposed to, oh, well, that kind of disturbed me, so I'm giving it a lower rating, because I do really love what Wicked brought to us. Something that is interesting within the book that also did not translate to the movie for me was the fact that in the book you can read that the animals with a spirit, the animals that can speak and teach and do what a human can, they are shown with a capital A, versus animals that don't have a spirit are shown with a lowercase a. So everything that was happening to the animals, I felt a little bit more for them. I felt more sympathy for them, versus in versus in the movie, they are animated. So it felt a little bit like, oh, they're just animals that are speaking. I didn't really feel their soul. Also, the animals in the book dropped so much knowledge, and I really felt like they were truly on the same level as all of the Munchkins, as Alphaba, versus the movie kind of made me feel like I didn't take them as seriously. Although I loved the movie, I gave it like a 9 out of 10. I just don't feel like it translated to me. So then we have Never Lie by Frida McFadden. Another book that I genuinely wanted to like so much because of what I heard about Frida. I watched a TikTok that basically insinuated, or maybe even outright said, that Frida McFadden was like the queen of thrillers, that she has like earned her spot being the figurehead of all thrillers right now. And I was like, I would love to read a book from the Queen of Thrillers. Are you kidding me? That's crazy. Let's get it going. I just chose a random book and I read it and was like, why do I take strangers' opinions so heavily? Like, why do I think that a stranger's opinion on TikTok, just because it is co-signed by like 100,000 people, does not mean that it'll sit with me? Let's get into the review. So, this book follows newlyweds, Trisha and Ethan, who are house hunting, and they end up at this house that belonged to a missing psychiatrist. There are a few things that are off about the setting and the temporary inhabitants, so Trisha and Ethan. But the newlyweds are stuck there because their car has kind of broken down and they're in like the middle of nowhere. And they have to endure being there and endure the information that the house has given to them because they can't get out. The premise got me so excited, and I was like, ooh, cool. And I guess the twists also excited me. However, I just felt like this is like a this is like so many thrillers I have read before. Because Frida McFadden is so trending right now and she's a lot of people are liking what she's putting out, I thought I was going to be floored, but I kind of just was like, this is just like every other thriller. And I need to stop falling for TikToks and taking other people's opinion as gospel. So let's go on to the next book, When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. I wanted to read more. I don't know if I'm trying to say people of color as authors or black authors specifically. Both. People don't understand, like, why do you feel the need to stress if it's a black story or people of, why can't you just read a good book and call it a good book? Listen, I think that people look at stories that include people of color or black people and are like, that's just not relatable. I just can relate to it, so I'm not gonna pick it up. And then it doesn't get the hype because it's put into like a niche. A niche of like, oh, this is a great story for Hispanic people, or this is a great story for black people, or this is a great story for whoever the heck, LGBTQIA. And then it gets pushed into this thing where it's like, oh, well, I can't relate to that. I'm not a part of that niche, so I don't want to, like, it's not going to be popular because it doesn't fit everybody. But that's personally why I feel it's important to push out stories that are either have like a black focus or just a story of a person of color. Because it's like, even me as like a black person, you would think like, of course you're reading like black stories. No, I feel like a lot of us fall into simply just reading books that are like fed to us, and then before I know it, I've read stories of like only like white authors for a while. I'll be on like a streak of like having no stories that are like things that I like would like to seek out. The things that are being fed to me are not the things that I would like to support. You know what I mean? When No One Is Watching, I gave this a 3 and I wish I had given it something higher. This book just triggered me, and it triggered me because this book is a thriller, and I don't want to say this, but I'm going to. It's hard for me to read black thrillers specifically because sometimes it just hits a little too hard. It just goes a little too strong for me. And I identify with it too much to the point where I get really discouraged by the story being told. When there is a story of a black thriller in movies or in books, there is always a topic of some sort of like sinister racial history. It's also hard as a black person to sit in history lessons and to not as an emotional, artistic, empathetic person, okay? It's like hard because I feel like it weighs on my soul in a way that I don't really want to seek out often. I'll seek it out, but it sometimes can just be a little bit heavy. This book is a thriller about this girl named Sydney who's living in Brooklyn, whose home and neighborhood are being impacted by gentrification. The themes of this book are the social impacts of gentrification and the tension of developing a relationship with an outsider you're not sure you can trust. And I listened to this book through audio, and the passion and power between shown through the narrator's voice was also just kind of like, oh god, I hate that she said that because it's really making me feel a lot of things that are hard to come to terms with and reckon with. Yeah, I'd give this a 3.5. God, I wish I could give it the 4, but I'm not somebody who was to read for escapism, but that was just like tough. it was a difficult, tense read for me. Last but not least, Hear One Moment by Leanne Moriarty. I did this in a reading vlog that will come out Sunday, so if you would like to check out my reading vlog, please do. Yeah, I gave this book a 3.5 out of 5. One one seemingly ordinary woman takes a plane ride where she seemingly falls asleep and goes into a psychic-like trance. She gets up and predicts date of death and cause of death of her fellow passengers. When she returns to her seat after causing a huge commotion, she only finds out what she does a while into the future. This book unfolds and we find out what turns out to be true and what turns out to be false about the woman, the predictions, and the people affected by the woman. This is a multiple perspective story that goes between the psychic, the potential psychic, and the passenger's perspective. So I went into this book knowing nothing. Knowing nothing. I just know that I really liked Leanne Moriarty's Apples Never Fall. I watched the show after I read the book, and I also have a video on that as well. I think it's on my main channel if it's not here. Maybe it's here, I don't know. And I just was a fan of her stuff from that. And then also I also watched the show Nine Perfect Strangers, adapted from her book. Yeah, this book was great. I thoroughly enjoyed it. You're gonna see it in the book vlog that comes out on Sunday if you'd like to look at it. It was nearly a 4 out of 5. However, just the last couple pages were just, they gave me book fatigue. They gave me a feeling like I can't wait for this to be over again so I can say that it's done. But I did enjoy a lot of moments. Um yeah, I wish maybe the last 50 pages were summed up a little bit quicker, more concise. Other than that, you can check out my all of my thoughts on the vlog that's coming out on Sunday. Thanks. That's all of my thoughts. Let me know what you read this month. Let me know what you recommend this month. Wow. Oh god, I forgot about the themes of grief that I like in a book. I also like books that feature grief. That's too late to mention it now. Wherever you are, whoever you are, whatever you're doing, whatever time of day it is, I hope you have an amazing morning, afternoon, or night.